Okay, I'm Alex Kanoki,
I'm Caden Rockwall.
and then this is our personal history investigation, and we're interviewing Mark Mule. And then, do you just want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Mark Mule, 1983 graduate of Pewaukee High School, and a 2008 retiree from the U.S. Army Special Forces, 25 years in. Del Presso Liber.
Okay, and then we'll just start off with the questions. So our first one was, were you drafted or did you decide to enlist?
I enlisted. The draft was over by the time, I think in the mid to late 70s, they ended the draft, so I volunteered for it.
All right. When did you enlist? Like, what do you remember the year?
Yeah, it was 1982. I had been talking to a recruiter when I was 16, and I knew I wanted to join the Army. So about a week after my 17th birthday, me and my girlfriend at the time, Donna, the recruiter picked us up, took us down to Milwaukee, and I enlisted. And because I was only 17, I had to get permission from my parents to join. And that way I spent 10 months on delayed entry, and as soon as I graduated, the following fall, I entered basic training, 17 years old.
What were some of the reasons you joined, and then how did you choose your branch of service?
Well, I was a terrible student. I was lazy, didn't like studying, didn't like school, and I knew I wasn't gonna, if I went to college, it would have been a waste of time and money. So I just thought it'd be exciting to join the service, and I didn't really consider anything but the Army. I don't know. I guess just the Army was always in my blood, and so it just seemed like the best place to go. Plus, it gave me a $2,000 signing bonus. So when you're 17, that sounds pretty good.
So how did you end up telling your family and your friends that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, some of my other friends had joined too, so there was it wasn't like an agreement or discussion amongst us. So my friends, it's just something that I don't remember how that exactly came about. It's just a couple of them were joining, and I decided to do so as well. My parents, when I said I was thinking about it, they encouraged that because they knew they were probably worried about my future. being a lazy kid, that they probably thought it would help me grow up. So I like to say the two most important decisions I ever made in my life, I made them both when I was 16, and that was to ask out Donna and Lynn Ackley on a date, because we've been together for 38 years now, and then also to join the Army, because that shaped my entire adult life.
How did you imagine military life before you joined, and then how did your perceptions change once you had joined?
Well, there was a couple movies like Stripes that made it look like it was going to be real fun and a lot of joking and stuff. I thought it would be pretty challenging. So I was scared when I got to boot camp. I went down to El Paso, Texas, Fort Bliss, and that was quite a change from Wisconsin. So I thought it would be really difficult, and it was. They drove us pretty hard, but I found out once you prove that you can just kind of do what you're told and show up on time, where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be, that it really kind of came natural to me. I liked it. I liked the discipline and the I was good at following orders, and so rather than just I thought I'd just be in for a couple of years and get out, and then I thought, I kind of enjoy what I'm doing, and decided to stick with it for a while.
So where did you serve?
Well, I was in so long, I served all over the place. So I started in West Germany. That was my first duty station. Because at that time in mid 80s, the wall hadn't come down yet. You know, there was still East and West Germany. And then after that, we went back to Fort Bliss. Me and Donna got married when I was in Germany. I think we were both 19. She might have been 18, so we were pretty young. You know, we look at our old pictures and it's like, wow, how did they let us do that? But anyway, so we started out in West Germany. Our daughter was born there. And then we went back to El Paso at Fort Bliss, and then from there I reclassified my job position, and I spent a year in Korea, and in South Korea while I was there, because that families couldn't come over there with me, so Don and Ashley moved back to Wisconsin to stay with their folks. And after that year, I got stationed at Fort Lewis in Washington, and that's when I decided I needed another change in jobs with the Army. So I volunteered for and was accepted into Special Forces, and that started a run of going from Fort Lewis to Fort Bragg, and then back to Fort Bragg is in North Carolina, and then back to Fort Lewis, and then from there to Okinawa, Japan, and then back to Fort Lewis. And those were my permanent duty stations. But as far as what was the question again? Deployments?
Yeah, where were you deployed?
Oh, so those were like my permanent duty stations where we would go with the families and stuff. So we went back and forth across the country to Japan, to Europe. And then deployments, as far as there's peacetime and wartime, I guess the peacetime would be Korea several times, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Thailand. Because I was in 1st Special Forces Group, and our area of orientation was the Pacific Theater. So got to spend a lot of time in Thailand and Korea and India, places like that, and then combat deployments to Philippines, which at the time, it was classified a combat deployment after we got back, but for Operation Enduring Freedom Philippines was one, and then one tour each in Afghanistan and then Iraq, and that was my final trip, was to Iraq, and then I came back and decided it was time to go.
What are some things you remember the most about your deployment?
You know, I think that's a really difficult question, because I think about a lot of them, like when I just rattle off the countries, like Sri Lanka, I just remember the was it a Komodo dragon? I don't know, but there's like peacocks all over the sides of the roads. It's kind of cool. And then I think it was in Thailand, drinking cobra blood, and the Philippines. I mean, I got memories of each one of them, and some not so good, and some were really good. It was just a really interesting life when I look back on it, and you know, lots of ups and plenty of downs too. But you know, the one that sticks with me the most was my last one in Iraq, because we had a few guys killed out there, and since it was the last one, I guess that's the one that I usually think about the most. But you know, I had some good times and some real bad times. But you know, I don't know how long you want to make this interview, but I can probably pick out a story from each place, you know, and kind of relate it to you if you want to drag it out that long.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be cool to hear the stories.
Wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay. Well, there was a guy named Dennis Berthe, and this was like just a funny memory from Korea. And he was an old former Marine that was in Special Forces too, and he just for some reason he was just kind of real methodical and slow, and he just would constantly be falling asleep. A little bit older than us at the time. I was in mid to late 20s or something, so I was young and full of fire, and Dennis was kind of older and Don now quite a bit, and we got to Korea one time, and we were doing a jump with the South Korean Republic of Korea Special Forces, and it was a static line parachute jump, and Dennis got hung up in the trees off the edge of the drop zone, and the South Koreans were calling him in Korean a tree turtle because the turtle moves so slow, and so that kind of stuck with him, and that's just an amusing story about old Dennis. He was a great guy, and I lost touch with him many years ago, but that's just a fun little thought I had about one of my trips to Korea. We've been to Korea, so many times. So yeah, we gotta go back to Korea again. But it was always interesting times over there. And then I got a book with some pictures in it. When we were in Thailand, we were getting resupplied by airdrop. They had a small, I think a 2-engine propeller-driven airplane that they would fly over our position, and we would mark it out, and they would drop supplies to us. And at one point, they were dropping a crate of ammunition, and they pushed it out too soon. And the surrounding areas, we were in a pretty heavy jungle area over there, and in northern Thailand, and we couldn't find where this went, and that was going to cause a big problem, because when you lose a couple cases of ammunition, someone's butt is on the line. And so we put out a reward. We passed it through the local Thai villages there, that we would give them a reward to anyone that would find it and turn it into us. And it only took about a day or two, and sure enough, someone had found a parachute off in the hinterland, and in the jungles, and they alerted us, and we gave them a couple hundred Thai baht, is their equivalent of the dollar, and as a reward. And then we were able to recover it, and that way no one got in trouble for it. So that was that was just another one of them cool kind of things that it's just when you're doing our job, it's just it's how you operate. You get stuff parachuted into you. It was just looking back, it's like probably something not a lot of people get to experience. Nepal was an interesting place. They had a bad Maoist insurgency going on at the time, and I was on guard duty one night, and just walking down the street, it was totally black out, and probably like 2 or 3 in the morning, all of a sudden all these cows or bulls or something just started come walking down the street, and there must have been probably, I don't know, 50 of them or something. And it was just weird. But Nepal, yeah, because when we would go somewhere, we wouldn't bring our own food. We'd eat what the locals eat. Kind of sleep in their conditions and everything. We would embed ourselves into their culture, to work with them. And so I remember eating yak burgers over there, and I wasn't too impressed with them. They seemed real tough and stringy, almost like hair in them. Maybe they put them in there on purpose, I don't know. But at some point I got a North Face jacket, and I was like, I got a North Face jacket in Nepal. That's kind of cool too. So, but Nepal was interesting. In India, we went to a place called Silchar, where they ran the Counterinsurgency and Jungle Warfare School, and the Indians gave us a nice demonstration of some of their capabilities, their special operations capabilities, and that was also an interesting trip. It was interesting to see because we flew in, and then I don't remember the exact airports. I think it was maybe New Delhi, and then we went to Bangalore. I don't know, and then we got on an old C-47, like a World War II style aircraft with a bunch of chickens and stuff, and flew out to Silchar, which is in the eastern part of the country, and it was just interesting to get around that country because you can see like absolute total poverty, and then a couple blocks away you'll have this nice new beautiful modern building, and it was just a real contrast in people's lives over there. That's something that really struck me. And Philippines, that's probably where I felt like I really had my best moments of my career, because when I went Special Forces, I went to 6 months of language school to learn Tagalog, which is the official dialect of the Philippines. And they're made up of hundreds of islands, and so they don't all speak the same language. They have many different kinds, but over there I got pretty good at speaking Tagalog. And so our team was, and I've been to the Philippines a couple times, but the story I'll tell you is about when we went down there during Freedom Philippines, and this would be in I think it was January of 2002, so just a couple months after September 11th, maybe January. Yeah, I think January. Anyway, so we went down to island off Zamboanga in the way south part of the country called Basilan, and my team was split up with a Philippine Marine Battalion. And so we started working with them and patrolling the island. We had our designated area. And since I was able to speak relatively well at the time, one of the major dialect, the official language, I was able to go with myself and one other U.S. guy, maybe two, and we would go with a platoon or a company of the Philippine Marines down to one of the local barangays. It's like their villages or towns, and I would meet with the village leaders, and we would converse in their language back and forth, and just try to get some information on who they are, and get some information about the area, see if they would point us in the direction of the bad guys. So that was a really cool moment to be able to do something like that. And at some point during that mission, their biggest problem at the time was Muslim insurgents called the Abu Sayyaf group, and who had been causing a lot of problems with kidnappings and beheadings and things like that. And they had captured a couple of U.S. missionaries at the time, and had them for, I think, 2 years by the time we got down there. But at some point during that mission, there was 25 of the Abu Sayyaf group members that surrendered, and we had to evacuate them from the island so they could go up to Luzon, the mainland, to face, justice or whatever. And so, yeah, maybe it was an early 2-3 in the morning type operation. We took them down, to the beachfront, because we had to take them out to a Philippine Navy that was going to transfer them to an airfield and get them out of there. And So the Philippine Marines were, you know, handling these guys, putting them on little rubber boats and taking them out to the larger Navy craft to get them up to a bigger place so they can take care of them. And one of the guys was having trouble getting in the boat. One of the Marines was having trouble getting in the boat, and he handed his rifle to one of the Abu Sayyaf guys to hold it for him so he could hop in. And that's when you just shake your head like, man, are these guys not learning what we're telling them? You know, that doesn't seem like a very safe thing to do, right? So, you know, you run into crazy stuff like that all the time. So that would be, you know, just a memory of the Philippines. Afghanistan was, of course, got there in 2004, and that was, you know, my first real big combat deployment. And even in 2004, like the IED threat was real, and unfortunately, it would take one of our guys later on in that rotation. But it was kind of an emergent threat at the time, and in Afghanistan, I worked in the battalion communications section. So I spent most of my time up at, forgot the name of the camp. It was on Bagram Airfield, which is like a huge U.S. Air Force base, just outside of Kabul. And I don't know, there was a smaller compound within Bagram Air Force Base that the Joint Special Operations Task Force was headquartered in. So I spent most of my time there, but I did have to go out to most of the fire bases at the time, just since, you know, to help them with communications or update their cryptographic materials and things like that. And so that's where I personally experienced our first friend of mine that was killed in action, and he was killed by a roadside bomb outside of Asadabad, and his name is Jeremy Wright, and you know that really hit home. That was a big loss, and it, just an interesting side note is just last week, his former high school down in Shelbyville, Indiana, held a memorial dedication ceremony that Don and I were able to go down to. He was killed in January of '05, so that was, you know, 16 years ago. And so they just unveiled this. They named a sports complex after him and unveiled this nice memorial plaque and stuff for him. And so we were able to go down there and see his parents and some of his family, and just tell them that we remembered Jeremy and thought about them. So that was a real blessing to be able to do that. But Afghanistan was, so you know, that was a little tough. That was a tough rotation. But even on something like that, I mean, you get these kind of funny moments. I noticed that you know, we would hire locals to do things like take out trash or do little construction projects and stuff like that all the time. And I noticed this one guy was wearing a sweatshirt that said Spanaway Lake High School. And he was an Afghani, you know, a local guy, just, you know, making a couple bucks a day to work for us, taking out garbage or something. And I thought, wow, that's my daughter's high school. So I went over and took a picture with him, and then I sent it back to her, and I said, you know, if you really apply yourself, you too can come over to Afghanistan and attain these goals, you know. So it was just funny, interesting thing to do. So there's and then my last one was Afghanistan or Iraq, excuse me, and in between Afghanistan and Iraq, I got promoted again. So when I got back from Afghanistan, I got promoted to Master Sergeant, and then I was assigned to ODA Operational Detachment Alpha 162, which provided a nice symmetry because that was the first team I was ever assigned to, and that was Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 1st Special Forces Group. That's the first team I was ever on. It was also the last team I was ever on with those 18 years in between. And so I was a team sergeant, which means I was the senior enlisted man on the team. And the commander was a captain, and then we had a warrant officer, and then myself, and then we had, the rest of, normally there would be 9 other guys filling out the rest of the team, but when we got to Iraq, of course, we were supplemented with extra communications and support personnel and stuff. But did I just say Afghanistan again? I meant Iraq.
I don't think so.
I don't
You said
think
Iraq.
so.
I think you said Iraq.
Okay, I'm getting my brain's getting mixed up here, but so I was a team sergeant 162 for like the final 3 years I was in, and that was a bad deployment. That was not good. We had several more men killed over there, and I was there for 8 months in 2007. We got there in March, and we conducted a replacement with the team from 5th Special Forces Group that was there, that we were taking over the area from, and my team was in Najaf, Iraq, and we were the only coalition forces in Najaf, and it's a huge city. It boasts the largest cemetery in the world, and it was a site of a real big battle with the Marines in I think it was 2003. During the initial invasion of Iraq and all that, and so we got there and we took that over from them, and I think, the dates will be a little fuzzy, but I think we took official control from them like early March, and within the 2 weeks we were coming back on a logistics run, and that's when we got IED. We had a diesel fuel truck that we were escorting back to our base, and it got, I was following in the vehicle right behind it because we would always travel our captain up front, doing the majority of the navigating, and then we'd have the main, just for this particular thing, we had the fuel truck, and then we had my vehicle in the back, just to kind of make sure, we were trying to provide a little bubble for this big giant floating target of gas moving down the highway, and sure enough, we're relatively close to our base in the Najaf, and the IED hit the fuel truck, and so we were driving, and that's an interesting experience, to say the least, because you just, I think we were probably getting close, so it had been maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that, and all of a sudden there's this giant fireball in front of you. I say, oh shit, and so, all our guys start opening up. We quickly pulled around to the front side of the vehicle, and the guy that was driving, a contractor from, I think it was KBR, named Geronimo, he came out and he had burns on his hands and on his face, and he was able to walk though, and so we got him into the back of our vehicle, and we hauled ass real quick out of the area because it was only our 2 vehicles. We're not going to stand and fight at this time. We got to just get out of there, and So we got up to a Iraqi police checkpoint, and I did a quick consult with the captain, and our interpreter at the time was a guy. I wish I remembered his name. I'll just call him Draz. But he was an Iraqi that had spent grown up in Chicago, that then went back to Iraq to work as an interpreter, and he was a real good guy. But he just mentioned, hey, we're only like 10 minutes from camp, so we just quickly got back to our camp, called in a medevac en route, and then we were able to get him out of there. And I know he got medevac to Germany for his burns over a large part of his body and stuff. But that was in like the first 2 weeks. I was like, boom, we got 8 months to go, and then I think by May, our company sergeant major Brad Connor was killed also by an IED. These IEDs, man, they're just tough to see, tough to find, and it's tough to fight an enemy that doesn't really want to engage in, But so we spent a lot of time between Najaf and a place called Diwania, where a team from our company was, and Diwania, yeah, we were always getting rocketed and mortared out there, and so there were some pretty intense times out there, and but that, at the end of that deployment, then I just was, I knew it was time to call it quits. So I was, I think, 42, 41 years old, and I was just tired. I felt mentally kind of shot, and I didn't do it. I know I was a good soldier. I think I was a pretty good comm guy. I wasn't a real effective team sergeant, so I just knew it was time for me to get out of the way at that point, and then we came back and called it a career. All right, I guess that's about it. That was my final trip, and then went back to Fort Lewis from Iraq, and then me and Donna were trying to figure out what we would want to do after we retired, and we came back to visit her parents here in Pewaukee. Her mom and dad were still living here, and we came back for Christmas, New Year's, right around there. I was on leave, and I remember we were walking down by the lakefront. I think we might have even been walking on the lake because it was frozen over, of course, and it was really cold, probably below zero, but there was no wind, so everything was just sunny, bright, crisp, and we're like, yeah, let's come back here. So that was 13 years ago now. And I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, without getting into individual, I mean, one of the in the Najaf province, like I said, we were the only, there would be a border team, BTT, what is it, border, whatever. I mean, coalition forces would transit through there every now and then, but we were the only ones really stationed there full time. So we're at this camp on the outskirts of Najaf, Iraq, and we're like, shit, man. There's only like, I forget how many of us there were, probably like 16, included like a cook and a couple of support commo guys, and in our team, and then a couple extra dudes, and but we're like, we're kind of, if they wanted over on our camp, I think they could have at any time, but we did the best we could to prepare for that by, coming up with a good base defense plan, and we had outer security set up, and that was Iraqis that would come in, live out in the city, and then they would come in and every day or every night or whatever and do their shift, and we would pay them. I forget what the going rate was, $25 a month or a day. I don't remember what it was, but you're like, do we really trust these guys? And then we also had inner perimeter, and those were Kurds, and they were from mostly the north, and we thought that they would fight to the death to protect us because Najaf was a Shia dominant city, and Shia is a particular sect of Islam, and there was no love lost between Shias and the Kurds, so we thought they would probably get killed too if we got overrun. So, but we would go and check on them at night and just make sure everyone was kind of awake and keeping their eyes open and stuff. A lot of sleepless nights there. Just in the end, they did a great job for us. We got mortared a couple times. That was usually after we would go out and do a raid. We would get work on getting intelligence information and identify any targets that we could. Target being a person, like, are they smuggling guns? Are they smuggling IEDs? Whatever. And then we would put them on a target list, and then we would set up a plan to headquarters. Hey, this is what we want to do. They would approve it, and we would call in a platoon, or our first one we called in 3 platoons of Iraqi special forces. When they got to our side of the camp, we would collect up all their cell phones, because operational security was a big thing. We don't want someone calling, or anyone, family, or who knows, but we don't want them calling up and say, hey, we got a mission going out the Americans and we're leaving now or whatever. So we collected all their cell phones. So just to I think we would leave the platoon leaders with them, but then we would go out and conduct a raid, and we were fortunate. We did a lot of planning and stuff, but we were fortunate to pick up a few bad guys over there. And after one in particular, I guess we pissed someone off pretty bad, because then we got ordered the next day or something. So you have to forgive me. My thoughts get scattered a little bit, so I'll probably start meandering off from one thing to the next and kind of forget where we started from. But
it's okay.
I guess that's enough of that.
Did you miss anything about civilian life when you were in the military?
Oh yeah. What I missed the most was being able to say no. And me and Donna, we had one daughter, and I think if had we not been in the military, maybe we would have had another child. I don't know. Maybe not. But it's hard moving, man. And we had to move every couple of years, and it's real hard on the family. Stressful, It was easiest for me because I was going from one job to another, and I would just kind of, report into my new duty station and know some people or whatever, and just go to work and everything. But your families, especially kids in schools, if they're getting pulled out of schools every couple of years, it's it's a difficult thing going, especially going from North Carolina to Washington, or even to Okinawa. And there was just sometimes, especially when we spent 4 years in Okinawa with with the First Battalion of First Special Forces Group, and we loved Okinawa. That was a great duty station. We had great missions. It was a lot of fun. Had a lot of, it took some getting used to, but we really liked it. And Ashley was going to be entering she had just completed her sophomore year, and so she was going to be a junior in high school. And I came down on orders to go back to Fort Lewis in Washington, and I requested to stay for 2 more years just so she could, stay in her same school. Her friends and stuff out there, they would come and go too, but for the most part, she was familiar with it. It was home, and so when I requested that, I was told no, I had to go back to Fort Lewis, and that's just the stuff that I did not like the most was the toll it kind of takes on the family that you really don't have much to say about.
Is there anyone in specific that you remember fondly that you served with?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys. And I got a love-hate relationship with Facebook. Mostly I hate it, but there's really not a better platform for kind of reconnecting and getting in touch with people. And so I've been able to link up with some people over the years that I served with. That it's always great to see them. I'm hoping to maybe get down to every year there's a convention, Special Forces Association convention, and this year it's in Las Vegas. Last year's I think was canceled because of the COVID deal, but I haven't been to one of those yet, and Las Vegas would be a good place to go because my sister's down there too, so I'm hoping maybe we'll head down there. I think it's in October. But I got a lot of good friends that I remember fondly. None of them live in Wisconsin though. It's like most people when they get out, they retire. Like we were in Fort Lewis in Washington, which is just south of Tacoma. And so the natural thing is to, just find a house and, or you'll have a house out there and just stay there and find a job or whatever. But as we came back here, that kind of contact has been few and far between. But I was able to link up with one of our medics, Luke Heyer, a couple of years ago. He was originally from Wisconsin, and Doug Kealoha. Last time we were in Vegas, got to link up with him just for short times, but that's all it really takes. And through Facebook, I think there's a lot of guys that I like talking back and forth with. Manny Ramirez, he's a funny guy from California. He's up in Washington, and Brian Wood, he's out on the East Coast, and I don't know, they're just all over the place. And there's probably the guys I spend the most time thinking about, which is on the board down there, are the guys that are served with that didn't make it back. And I've been able to get in contact with their families and see a couple of them, like Jeremy's and that. But we can talk about them when you see the thing. But that's really meaningful to be able to they call them Gold Star families, families that lose a loved one killed in action. And so those are special people in my heart, and they always will be.
So is there anything that you found out that was surprising once you got into the military that you wouldn't have thought would have been that way when you first joined?
I don't think so. Because when I first joined, uh, I was in a air defense artillery unit, and it was mid to late '80s, and I think what surprised me when I got to my duty station in Iraq is, in Germany. I got out there at the time. Then I turned 18 when I was in basic training, so I got to my first duty station when I was 18, and that was in West Germany. And I was surprised that there was a lot of guys smoking hash out there, hashish. They didn't have pot, but I was just I don't know if there was. It just really struck me as, wow, these guys are out here getting stoned all the time. And we had someone come in later, a first sergeant that really cleaned up the unit. He was, we called him Tasmanian Devil, because he was but God, he was just tough, and we wanted, I don't know, you go from hate to a grudging respect for him or something, because it was just hard to work for this man. But for some reason he liked my wife, and just in a I guess non-sexual way or whatever, I don't know, but I was like, hell yeah, man, get me off the hook for something. But I was surprised, that's like shocking. I'm like, holy smokes, man, I can't believe these guys are doing drugs. And so that was one thing. And, I guess that's really, I wouldn't have expected that, and that's the way it was. But another interesting thing was when I got to my first duty station in January, I had never, broken a bone or something as a kid growing up. And within a month of me getting there, it's called Permanent Party Station, we were getting ready to go to the field for a training exercise, and I got backed into by a Army 2.5-ton truck, and I broke my arm and wound up in the hospital for a couple weeks. And I've had 2 surgeries on my arm, my right arm and elbow here, and so that was just like, I think my parents were pretty worried at that point. I just got over there and I'm in the hospital, like, what the hell? So I guess that's about enough about that. But once it got cleaned up, I mean, every duty station I was at after that, we would party hard, we would play hard, but there was no illegal drug use or anything that I knew about or ever saw. So it was really just that first thing in the 84, 85, 1984, 1985 time range around there that stuff was going on, and but after that, I never really experienced it. I don't think that there was a bunch of drug use going on all those other places I went to, because there wasn't. But as a young kid getting your first place, you kind of look up to everyone that's been there for a little while, and you're like, oh, okay, this is how we roll.
How did your time in the military affect you, would you say?
It shaped my whole life, for sure. Because I spent I guess I was 17 when I left home, and I've been independent ever since then. And me and Donna got married at 19. She might have been 18. I think I was 19. But, had I not joined the Army, that wouldn't have happened. Because I missed her. I was in Germany. She was back in Wisconsin. We didn't have computers or cell phones or anything at the time. So when I wanted to talk to her, I'd have to go to a payphone, and it costs like $10 a minute or something to call back home. And so just that kind of distance we decided we just had to have each other. And so we got married young, and it worked out great for us. And we still love each other to death. And but everything, I mean, it just, at first I joined because I didn't want to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew college would be a waste of time for me. I didn't know what else to do. And so I thought it'd be just like an interesting adventure or something. And then, as I got promoted and spent more time then I started, really believing in what we were doing. And then by the time I got into Special Forces, I got into that because I just felt like I needed to be doing more. And, then it just became a thing about really believing in what we were doing to try and protect America and help liberate some oppressed peoples along the way. Time will tell, I guess, how successful that was, but it taught me how to be a man, really. So I wouldn't trade that for the world.
So you said your last deployment was in Iraq. So what was the process of coming home from that like?
There was no fanfare. Well, I'm trying to remember how this worked. So when we left Iraq, well, from Najaf, we flew by helicopter up to Baghdad. And, it's interesting because you see all the palaces and all that kind of stuff. And, it's like, wow, it's a pretty cool place to set up a base and stuff. But from Baghdad, then I think we flew via some Air Force transport down to Kuwait. Spent like a day in Kuwait. And then I think we got on a 747 and flew to Germany, and we're there maybe overnight, and then to Scotland, I believe it was. And from Scotland, I think we went back to, was it Bangor, Maine? And from there, then we finally flew back. I get these mixed up between Iraq and Afghanistan because the paths were somewhat similar. But I remember in Bangor, Maine, this might have been coming back from Afghanistan, but we got off the aircraft and they had this tradition where a bunch of the civilians that lived out there would meet us at the airport as we were deplaning, and they would be like in 2 rows and just be clapping and waving flags and stuff. And that was really kind of touching, to get back on American soil and to have that kind of reception. It was just a beautiful thing. So we would spend like a night there and then fly back to Washington. But when we got back from Iraq, it was late night, 1, 2 in the morning or something. We just landed at McCord Air Force Base, which is just adjacent to Fort Lewis. So we landed at, 1 in the morning, we'll say, and grabbed our stuff, got on buses, drove over to Fort Lewis and back to the compound. Like Donna was there, some of the families were there. And we got off the buses and got to link up with our families just for a few minutes before, okay, now we gotta go get all the weapons and turn them in and all this other kind of stuff. Which would take about an hour, and then and then it's just have a formation and say, okay, everyone back here at 9 o'clock or whatever, and then we got to start going through the recovery thing. So there was no real fanfare other than that, and then took a few days to do the recovery, because then you just go home. It's like boom, okay, for a couple hours, and then we took like maybe a week or so. We clean up all our guns and turn them in, and get them all turned back in and inventory, and clean up all our gear, and do. I think at the time then we would go through to this building on Fort Lewis, and they would have you go through these stations, updating all your information and doing medical checks on you and all this other kind of stuff. And after about a week or two of that, then everyone would get like a month. You get 30 days of leave to go just wherever, do whatever. But even at the time, because there was always another mission coming up. I remember we were in Iraq for like a couple months, and they're asking me for ammo forecast for training for another thing, and my team, when we got back, I had put in my retirement paperwork, and they were getting ready to go on another, go to Korea or something like that within a month after getting back. So it's like I think everyone thinks about the big deployments, the Iraq and the Afghanistan, but in between all those is you got all the Joint Readiness Training Centers in Fort Polk, and then you got the Korea deployments, and you got all the other little things that still are going on in Asia, and so it's a pretty high tempo operations tempo job, and so coming back was good to get back with Donna, and for me it was unique because I knew that was it. I had made up my mind that I was going to retire then. So I talked to our company sergeant major about it, and set a retirement date. And when I did go on that 1 month leave, that's when we came back here and decided to move back to PHI. So it was not at the time it wasn't like a rough transition, because I was still on the compound and stuff, but then moving back here and then just having that isolation, I thought I wanted that isolation. I wanted nothing to do with the military, and but that really started to weigh on me after a while, and I found that I needed to reach out to people and kind of reconnect with that whole side of my life, because it was like the dominant force in my life was my time in the military. So I couldn't just leave it and never think about it again. I think about it a lot. So that led to joining a local organization out here, and Special Forces Association, and then doing some of these other things like meeting some of the Gold Star families, and then taking a trip out to Arlington National Cemetery. And, so it's, I guess it's something, those experiences you never want to forget, and you never can forget. And, I got great memories and bad memories about the whole thing. So, but it's been a hell of a ride,
Kind of going along with your discharge, was there anything about civilian life that was hard to transition back to?
Yeah, I think I get, like I feel stagnant sometimes, or I had problems with that. It's like because we moved so much, and there was always like a next thing, and next thing, and next thing coming up. That when we got back here, which is what you're always looking for, what you always want, is just I want to get out, I want to get a house, I want to live my life and be a civilian and stuff. But then after a couple of years, you're like, you start getting that feeling like, oh, you know what, it's time. We should be going. We should be doing something else, And so that's something that took, it takes them a while to get used to, and that was probably like the hardest transition is just not having that. I guess I don't know if you call it a sense of urgency about the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. You're always like planning for the next thing. It's just easing into that daily routine where you got to learn to slow down and enjoy what's going on around you, and hopefully I don't drive down too nuts anymore with wanting to move or wanting to do this or wanting to do that. Poor things had to put up with a lot, but we're in a good spot now, so we're living our life right now.
If you had to say like there's one difficult part of serving, what was the most difficult part?
Well, the most difficult part is when you lose people that you know, and because it's not just a number or a name anymore. Then it's damn, I knew that, and I know that guy, I know his family, I know that, they're going through hell right now. They're getting notified and all that, and so that's definitely the hardest part is just when you lose someone, so the only way to really honor, the way I choose to honor their sacrifice, their loss, is to always honor their surviving family members, and that's just a small little thing that we like to do is every Memorial Day we say the names of the fallen, and then we're also thinking about their families too. So that's definitely by far the hardest part. Second hardest part is what it does to your own family, because when Donna is back at home and all of a sudden there's a communications blackout with us downrange, they know that something bad is going on, and then that they get notified that someone's husband or someone in the company got killed, and then they gotta go and have a service at the chapel for them, and we're all still gone. So it's tough. It's tough on the families. It's not for everyone. That's why there's such a high divorce rate. But I picked a good one, and for some reason she decided to hang around, and I'm eternally thankful for that. But I'll just end it right there.
And then our last question is this is kind of similar to one from before, but what is one of like the most memorable memories you have of your time serving?
I think I like to end on a positive note. Is just stepping off the bus after getting back from Iraq and seeing Donna, and knowing in my mind that was going to be the last time I was going to be gone from her. That was like, she was, I think it was just before Halloween when we got back, and we just hugged, and boy, that was a good hug, and I was so glad to see her, and I just knew that, okay, this is it. My mission is complete, uh, and that was it. But that was I will always remember coming off that bus and seeing her. We had all gone through quite a bit. We lost 5 guys in Iraq, and uh, that was just probably one of the great moments in my life, was just having that feeling about we're back together and I'm not going anywhere else. No one's going to make me. So that's it.
All right. Well, thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
thank
your
you.
story with us.
Yeah, I'm not a great storyteller, so I know I'm confusing some events. I mean, it's all in there somewhere. I guess I bang my head around too much, but I appreciate you guys, asking me to do this for your project, and I hope I was able to give you what you were looking for.
Yeah, you definitely
Yeah,
did.
you did.
So thank you.